This involves a subject that I would have left to a YouTube comment that would easily have included a simple, quick allusion about Mangs pulling a sexual assault of a woman in her sleep at a cross-country convention back in mid-2019. But the risk involved to another person is simply too excessive for that notion, and because of that, a YouTube video is necessary. Here's the overview. A user named Melth has been making videos of Advanced Wars 2 that involves getting 300 points on each and every campaign level, and he's been doing these videos with commentary, which fortunately includes taking jabs at levels like Showstopper for their involvement of fake difficulty. What I'm bringing up is his most recent video. The Hunt End hard campaign with no casualties and no exploiting the random AI to have the battleship stay on the Mega Factory deployment tile as it will sometimes do. He does have to use Convey, but considering how inane the battleships get, he has little other choice. He also used the Max for the side seal to be able to one-hit KO the black hole inventions with his bombers to get around the convenient anti-air missile launcher that would otherwise need to be sniped off by a battleship that the pre-deployed submarines interfere with usage of. Now, having seen the video from Patreon before the official premiere, I quickly brought up on the premiere chat about how the game's Navy design has problems. And I actually started off about MKKitKats preferring the Navy branch more than the land or air branches, as a setup to point out about the value of TLC, and that does not stand for totally lost cause unless you think the point that my Game Boy Wars 3 Pow patch turned the tanker, which in base Game Boy Wars 3 is arguably the most useless unit in the entire Nintendo Wars series, into a useful startup phase healer, could possibly be done. I was wanting to make a point that the execution of Navy design tends to reflect on the game's own design. You might notice, for example, that Game Boy Wars 3 has its Navy being packed with anti-air capability, even if it is more dispersed, which still merely augments the involvement of interactivity between Navy and Air. But base Game Boy Wars 3 has some latent fundamental problems that my Pal patch did what could be done to address them. I bring that up when the Advanced Wars games has the problem that the only Navy unit remotely good at challenging the bomber is the cruiser, and that thing that gets kited out at best to begin with. You could argue that Dual Strike has its aircraft carrier, but even then the bomber can still slip through it into range, and the stealth exists anyway. But I'm getting off track. I bring this up because you might have noticed that I refer to MKKitKats with gender pronouns and addressing her as female. Well, this ties into the big issue that warrants this video. A comment by our good friend, Mangs, that quickly got supported by Melth. Before I can even talk about MKKitKats, for all that it is an urgent matter, I have to address something to Melth. Melth, if you are watching this, I understand that you show signs of simply being in your own bubble, to be so focused on your own stuff. I further understand that you are friends with multiple women on Advanced Wars by Web, so it's likely that you simply don't know what Mangs has done to Goosaphone or the other women who have come out against Mangs. So I personally can still extend you the benefit of the doubt. Still, I have to call out this mess, especially when there's valid reason why Mecha from the Fire Emblem communities refuse to work with anybody who supports Mangs, on the grounds that Mangs' 100,000 enablers have harassed Goosaphone, the general victims, Mecha, and Chaz Arya LLC, not to mention myself, for calling out Mangs. This is not me trying to late night. This is me seeing on July 4, 2020, Mangs' sociopathic manipulation efforts for exactly what they were, even without the context that was added 4 days later that simply punctuates as much. It's the sort of reason why I was already figuratively vomiting at the sight of your support of Ming's comment, and this wasn't before I realized it in thinking and how to respond to suddenly call it out that there are some nightmarish implications with what Mings could do to MKKitKats if given a chance. When I thought about the implications about how Mangs could abuse MKKitKats, I opted to private message MKKitKats to alert her about Mangs, pointing to the Mangs and July 2020 video, which by the way has comments by me, including one on the pinned comment thread, that for some reason I can't see when I'm logged off of my YouTube account. I don't know why. And point to my own commentary about her preference of the Navy, a citation of my Mangs could see a target via my usage of the gender pronouns. I had already seen one Genki girl in real life, by the way, and be driven into casual lifelessness by circumstances no fault of her own, thank you very much. And that was simply involving bad structure resulting from bureaucracy bloat. I'd compromised my own position actively simply to call that mess out too. Which makes me more glad when a certain troll nest website got shut down by the efforts of Keppels. But Meg still gives the members of that troll nest website somebody to rally behind for their abuses. My point is that the Genki girl is not immune to being broken. I've been understanding that for years on end. Even if I didn't, I certainly did by the time I did the call out of the in real life Genki girl having her vitality butchered. 2 weeks after the Kincaid fire started, meaning 8 months before the allegations against Mangs came out. But I know the Mangs Empire at this point. They're not going to care ever. And that is what makes this video necessary. That MKayKitKats get seen as target practice, and without Mangs being outed was not even directly over the sexual assault against Goosaphone, but rather breaking Goosaphone's trust again by blatantly desecrating her mental health for cheap laughs. Yeah, this needs to be called out. Period. And by the way, I'm aware that bringing this up would increase the chance of Mangs pulling a fast one based off of my information. The chance exists regardless. And again, I private messaged MKayKitKats to be watchful against Mangs, providing her with enough evidence to underwrite and why she shouldn't give Mangs the time of day. So I have at least done what I could. The rest lies on her at this point. And let me tell you, I first knew her from her Battalion Wars 2 multiplayer guide, with some funny points such as how, even with the gunship, to be careful against the heavy tank, because, in her own words, it might bait. I wanted to at least compare notes, and didn't even have any idea that she was female until we talked in instant messaging, and she had several FAQs for Ace Attorney games too. I should also bring up that I've been wanting to further stream Ace Attorney investigations, but I'd have to wait for sufficient accommodations before that could happen. Especially when I have heard about things about its big bad being between the complete monster candidacy, the abuse of a certain factor that has tied into a berserk button for me in recent times, and how they are so persistent before finally dropping dead as compensation for Cryptop Gavin going down so quickly in gameplay. So yeah, plenty of potential reasons for me to want to give them the same obscenity-filled screeching that I did toward Roger Rattins. Although I doubt they top Rettins in my book, especially when Rettins persist in involving recency bias thanks to January 6. But I never know. But anyway, I'd be up for welcoming MKayKitKats on my Ace Attorney streams. Now, of course, I'm practically in a prisoner's dilemma, and I basically choose ally with MKayKitKats at least. But what would happen if both Melth and MKayKitKats would choose betray? I know what would happen. The whole situation consisting of people willing to be deserving of each other. Never mind that ally wouldn't get them extra points anyway, because I would not want to betray Melth to begin with. Not at the point where the advanced source communities need somebody who could allow for fixing the problems that were horribly aggravated by Chipface and Mangs. But I'm used to this idiocy. Especially when seeing how people endorse Mangs against overwhelming evidence in the same breath where they were so quick to condemn Victiminonia without evidence. I already didn't care about the real-life Genki girl potentially feeding my perspective beyond bringing up the possibility to bite at it, not when there was evidence of a structure problem regardless. And besides which, I can at least make my stance against more of the abuses by the Mangs Empire. What I know is that the actions of the advanced source communities do not make things safe or healthy for women, and that problem is definitely able to leak out through abuses by the gleeful primary authors of that issue. Mangs Empire, treat MKayKitKats with respect and dignity instead of your usual bile!